for Christmas, so I did some green and red for you. But it ends up being that it's after Christmas, so we still have a little bit of Christmas feeling here actually, I guess. But I color coded in hopes that you can look at the blue or the black and the green and the red at a quick glance and be able to see what of your policies, your current policies that we're using, and what of your current policies that we're looking at revising, and then what are we wanting to add or delete to your policies. So I hope that the color coding that I've given you is helpful and not hurtful and confusing. If it is, please let me know. So the black, when we look at the black, we won't focus on that tonight because that is your current policies. And there's no changes on anything that's solid black in the policies, okay? So then the green is your current policies, but we reworded them to get a little bit more clarity or reorganize things, but it's all the same content. So nothing in the policy itself is changing, okay? Your red is everything that is new that we want to ask to be placed into the policy. And then you will see some red in between the greens here and there. That's changes that we would like to ask to be made to the policies. I don't want to focus on anything primarily tonight unless the board chooses or the council chooses differently. We'll focus on primarily the red and what we want to look at eliminating from the policy, which is very minimal. So we will start out, if you want to, we'll move to Article 1. A lot of these are going to be fast moving, but there's going to be about 2 or 3 of them that may take us a little bit more time to go through, okay? Are there any questions at this point?
Is that good with the council to go through like this, or do y'all have specific ones you want to go to and ask questions? Or
Yeah, we could do it however the board,
is
the
there
council
a
wants.
way that will conduce it for y'all, or how do y'all want to do it? Does that sound good the way she wants to do it?
Does that work? Okay,
Sounds
perfect.
like everybody's on board?
And I know everybody this is probably the least of your priorities, so I will try to move as fast as I can, and I will slow down as slow as we need to go, okay? So we'll start out with Article 1, which is the organization of the personnel system. And this policy is basically a standard, industry standard that all counties, municipalities have in their policies. And the most significant change that we're asking for the board to consider, I keep saying board and I apologize, I am local government, so Board of Commissioners is my natural terminology, so I do apologize if I refer to you as board. I'll try to continue to council. The biggest change that we want to make in this piece of the policy is to assign HR manager duties to the town clerk. And that gives Mr. Robinson some more administrative assistance. So we would like to do that and also add in the deputy town clerk as part of the organization, because that is one of the key positions that kind of is the glue that holds the organization together. So that is one request. And I will tell you tonight, everything we're looking at is a working document. So what we're presenting to you tonight, we're asking for your input. We will come back, I think, in Ms. Robinson in February and present a formal adoption. So, we can make whatever adjustments we need to make. Okay. We'll move to Article 2, which is the position and pay plan. And you can see there's going to be a lot of black in here, a lot of red, a lot of green. So we will flip over to page 6. The first request that we have is to change the verbiage of your position and pay plan. Currently, it's called classification and pay plan. We would like to change that to position and pay plan. We feel like that more accurately reflects the town's current practice. And it's just a simple verbiage change is all it is. And then we will move to page 7. The progression to the standard job rate and the failure to perform satisfactorily. Those two pieces play hand in hand. And what that basically is just saying is this is our current policy, but we need to put it in place into our policy. So it's an unwritten policy and a practice that the town has had. We want to implement that into the policy. Then we move down to section 10. And as you can see, what we've really tried to do here is make sure that all of the decision-making for pay ranges or pay increases or pay decreases is at the pleasure of the town manager under the direction of town council. Some of the areas in the policy will read that they're not gonna have to receive a decrease in pay, or they are gonna receive a decrease in pay. So what we wanna do is just streamline that and say that the salaries will be evaluated based on, the town manager's observations. Meaning that if you have someone who is in a position who is gonna transfer down a job grade, from one job grade to the other, the policy says that they won't have a pay decrease. Well, that might not necessarily be what needs to happen, because you wanna make sure that you're not creating compression with other employees in those same positions or like positions. So it gives him, excuse me, it gives him that leverage and flexibility to be able to determine what the salaries need to be and make sure they're fair and equitable. So if we change that verbiage, that gives him that flexibility. We've also made a clearer distinction between a voluntary demotion and an involuntary demotion. The policy does read that now, but we kind of cleaned that up just a little bit. And again, we want to continue to recommend that the salary ranges are at the discretion of the town manager. Then we move to page 8. We've got a voluntary demotion no fault, and an involuntary demotion no fault, and an involuntary demotion for cause. We've differentiated those, and again, still continue to put the salary decision on the town manager. Same thing as for reclassification. Then we wanted to add 2 sections, which is the training salaries and the certification incentives. These are 2 things that the town currently does that we just want to put into place into the policy. Anytime questions, you stop me, okay? Page 9, this one, currently, what your policy reads is that you have the option to decide if they want to be paid overtime or if they want to comp that overtime. And that's not the practice that the town has had. Mr. Robinson has assured me that everybody receives comp time with the exception of the police department. So they receive the overtime. So we want to make sure your policy is marrying up to what your practice is. Section 15, the FEMA overtime. This isn't something that happens very often. And when something doesn't happen very often, we can't remember exactly what to do with it. So we added this in here more for management, to have this as a guidance if we get in that situation to where we need to implement the FEMA overtime. Page 10, we've got section 16, authorized deductions for exempt personnel. This is a Fair Labor Standards Act requirement. So we've got that in there, that's covered there. Gives you that added layer of protection of not violating the Fair Labor Standards Act regulations. Section 17 is a callback. It's your current practice, just wasn't in policy. So we want to make sure that we put that in policy. Any questions on Article 2? Am I going too fast, too slow? We good? We'll go to Article 3. That is your, let's see, that one was your recruitment and selection. I'm sorry.
Yeah, some of the recommendations that have been presented, are they customary with other municipalities, or the recommendations from our administration?
What we're changing in the policy?
Well, I've seen, some of the recommendations, like some of the stuff is, yes, whether it's in green or in red. But then in parentheses, they have recommend doing X, Y, and Z. So I was wondering, those recommendations, are they in line with other?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Yes, sir. Yes. Page 15, the position vacancy announcements. What we asked is, or what we're asking is to have, and this is very standard, industry standard too, is to implement a posting requirement, which means that Mr. Robinson or whoever he assigns the responsibility to the staff, that any openings that become available, the job will either be posted internal only for a minimum of 7 days, and that gives that opportunity for internal promotions. And then if Mr. Robinson and his group feels that maybe there's not that opportunity for an internal promotion, they can post that job internally and externally simultaneously, and for the 7-day period. And that again is a very, very standard industry. I did not see anything in your policies that talked about posting positions and opening up those opportunities for employees for promotional opportunities. The application reserve file is standard, industry standard, and that is just the retention of the personnel records for hiring. We'll move to page 16. You can see on section 9 appointments, I am recommending removing that section from the policy. If you read that, it just puts me a little uneasy, feeling that it looks like we're blaming ourselves to be at fault, and I don't think we are. So I suggest that we remove that highlighted section in section 9. The probationary period of employment, and we're requesting this to be changed up quite a bit. And that is, one, we want to include part-time employees in that probationary period. Right now, it's probably not that big of a deal because you guys are small. I think you only have one part-time. But I think with mine and Mr. Robinson's conversation, we're looking at 5 years down the road, or, however far, and this would help to carry you through to that. The other thing is that we are asking for the probationary period to be changed to 1 year versus 6 months. Currently, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Robinson, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think your police department is the only ones who have the 1 year, and then the rest of the employees have the 6 months. So that would be all of your new employees, which we refer to as initial probationary period. They would have a 12-month probationary period. Then we differentiated your new hires with an initial probationary period from your current employees who may be promoted. So when your current employees are promoted, they would serve only a 6-month probationary period. And the other difference would be that your initial probationary period people, they can be terminated. And we actually just worked with Mr. Robinson the other week on a situation that, his probationary period policy wasn't quite clear enough for him. So that kind of helped us to tweak this even more. But if it's an initial probationary period employee, that person, the management does not have to go through progressive discipline. They can be terminated with no appeal rights. Your promotional employees who have been with you and you promoted them, you would go through the progressive discipline or move them back into their old job or another position if you have it. But they would serve only the 6-month probationary period. Page 17, we have differentiated involuntary versus voluntary demotion. There's a little bit of confusion there. So what we want to do is make sure that we're clear on how their salary is adjusted again. And some of these, there's a few of these spots in the policies, this being one of them, that you're going to see duplicated in different articles. There's just a few of them, and we don't have to duplicate them, but I feel like that it needs to be in all of those areas, just a few little spots. So this is one of them, the demotions for involuntary, voluntary. We also included a section for promotions. That basically is requiring them to apply within that time or that job posting 7-day period, or longer if it needs to be posted longer. But they would apply during that period. I think right now you guys don't require them to apply, but that's just adding some language in there for your promotional people. Page 18, we want to add 2 more sections. which is an interim appointment section, which allows Mr. Robinson to have the leverage to be able to appoint someone into an interim position. Let's say he had a public works director opening, and he had an employee who he wanted to bring into that position temporarily till he got the position filled. He could do that, give them a temporary increase, remove that increase when that position got filled with someone else or that promoted employee one. The other piece we would like to implement is a trainee salary process, which means that if we run into some recruitment issues, that Mr. Robinson can scale down just a little bit, and we can hire in someone who doesn't quite meet all of the criteria for the position, but we put them in a trainee status. We can bring them in under the minimum of the pay range until they get all of their training completed. Then you can move them up to the beginning of the pay scale. So that gives him that leverage to be able to utilize that when we run into recruitment issues, which we all know nowadays, we have trouble finding qualified people. Any questions on Article 4? Article 4 is another one that's very, very common in the industry standard. We have reworked your workplace harassment policy just to give it a little bit more clarity, let it help it to flow a little better, to help management. This is another one of those things that probably isn't going to happen very often. And when it does happen, we're not going to remember because we don't do it very often. So this gives the management some clear guidance on the steps to use for workplace harassment complaints. The greatest change in this section is adding in the training and education category, which is on page 22, which says that basically that you will do a periodic workplace harassment training to employees, and you will also do that to all of the new hires as well. And that is a EEOC requirement. We also are asking to have a workplace violence and weapons in the workplace policy put in place. That is another industry standard as well. Your drug-free workplace policy is actually in pretty good shape. We just wanted to add a disclaimer in there on page 23, which gives us, which puts the responsibility on the drug and alcohol clearinghouse, which is about 3 years old, I guess, to where your CDL drivers have to go through a formal process. We want to make sure that our policies are clear, that we are not trying to trump the clearinghouse. The clearinghouse's policy will trump ours. So that's the disclaimer, what this disclaimer is for. If we go to page 25, there are a few things in the policy for drug and alcohol that I'm recommending that we change up. For example, number 1 down at the bottom under covered applicants, required to submit to a drug screening. It shall be performed within 48 hours from when the conditional offer of employment is made. And the same thing with number 3, gives a time frame to have that testing done. I feel like they need to go immediately to the site. So I feel like we need to eliminate that verbiage in the policy. You can do a lot of damage in 4 hours. So, and then on page 26, number 2 is highlighted under covered employees. I do recommend removing that section. It is not necessary to inform an employee in writing of the requirements. So it's just something extra that Mr. Robinson and his new HR manager approved will have to maintain, and it's not necessary. Page 27, the paragraph reads that it says if they're under the influence while at work, the alcohol or drug consumption occurred on the job. Well, we're more concerned about are they under the influence on the job, not when they consumed it. So I think we need to look at changing that verbiage, and I think better verbiage to use would be the employee, to see if the employee is under the influence of drugs or alcohol, instead of under the consumption, and that they consumed it during working hours. Number 1 down under random testing. I recommend that we remove number 1. That's the alcohol testing. Employee shall be tested if the employee is performing safety sensitive functions immediately prior to performing or immediately after performing safety sensitive functions. It's very subjective to me. So, we don't want to have to worry about the timing of when they were performing duties. We just want, if they're under the influence, we want to test them. So I recommend that we remove that policy, or that section of the policy. Number 2, you'll see that highlighted too, an alcohol test will result in a 5-day suspension without pay. I recommend we change that verbiage to disciplinary action up to and including dismissal, because you don't know that that person that you're dealing with at that moment, they may be on a final warning. It might be time to terminate them. So if we do the 5-day suspension, no matter what their work record looks like, we're locked into just the 5-day suspension. So we want to make sure we've got the leverage to be able to take all of their disciplinary actions if needed and use them all together. Same thing down at the bottom on return to duty for your drug and alcohol. There's a statement on page 28 that talks about a positive drug test being considered as the second positive, if there's a second positive alcohol test within a 5-year period, will result in dismissal. I recommend that we remove that. I don't think we put a time frame on that, because if you've got an alcohol or drug issue, you may want to dismiss immediately, not give them, you've got X number of chances in a 5-year period. So I recommend that we remove that. Okay. Page 29, your uniforms and dress code policy. The only thing we've added there is, I'm sorry?
Question, on the, alcohol drug part,
Yes, sir.
is there anything in there about if a person refuses?
Yes, it is in there that it is considered a positive test.
Okay, all right.
Yes, sir. On your uniforms, dress code, and personal appearance, we just implemented or asking for a little section to be implemented to give the department directors or supervisors some responsibilities there. Other than that, there's nothing significant that changed there. We are asking that we add in a statement, the town of Chadbourn will provide reasonable accommodation for attire based on religious, cultural, or medical needs as required by applicable law. Gives us that added layer of protection for EEOC or equal employment opportunity, to where we're not discriminatory if people have religious reasons for things that they wear. Page 30, outside employment, we are asking for a little bit of change to that. We want to include part-time people being required to report outside employment as well as full-time. A lot of times, especially when you're looking at a public sector employment, our police officers, for example, they may work part-time for us, but they probably work full-time somewhere else. And we want to know that. A lot, primarily, make sure we don't have a conflict of interest, make sure we're not violating the Fair Labor Standards Act, and also make sure if there's rest periods and stuff for those departments that they're getting the appropriate rest between jobs. And again, with one part-time person, it's not that big of a deal now, but moving forward, as you grow, you will want that. The other thing that we would like to change on that is have them remove that annually versus quarterly, which is very common in the industry. We also implemented or are recommending implementing the limitations you see there in the police department. Employees, town police departments prohibited from working for any organization or personal business while in uniform or in law enforcement capacity without prior written approval from the police chief. If they don't report the outside employment, then we have the ability to administer disciplinary action if needed. Sometimes mistakes happen and we have to accept mistakes, right? On the limitation of employment of relatives, we have added a section in here that states relatives of town council members shall not be eligible for employment with the town during the council member's term of office. And Mr. Robinson, I don't know if you want to elaborate on that or not, but I don't know how the town feels about that. But that is one thing that he and I discussed, that if the town council is not satisfied with that, we can massage that however you need to.
That's it.
We also, on page 31, added a section for at-will employment, just to give us some clarity and make sure that employees know that we are under contract with them. North Carolina is an at-will state. But we also want to make sure that the employees understand that although we are at-will, we're not going to illegally do anything to them with their employment. Social media policy looked really good. The only thing we would like to add on to that is a pornography section. And that's the extent of the Article 4 changes recommended. Any questions? Am I going too fast, too slow? We good. Article 5, hours of work. We would like to ask for the flexible work schedule on page 2 to be implemented. This is current practice. We just need to place it into policy. Let's see. On your rest breaks period, or rest break periods on page 3 of the policy, we did add some language in there, making sure that employees understood that they couldn't bank that break time. They couldn't save it up and leave early at the end of the day. They're not paid for it if they don't take it. Gives them a 15-minute break in the morning, 15-minute break in the afternoon, which is your current policy now. So we just put that little blurb in there to make sure that we didn't have some confusion on whether they were going to be able to bank this time or not. The break time for nursing mothers is several years old. We are required to have a policy in place, and so that is in here as well. If you guys are small, so we're not going to designate these places in these different buildings for nursing mothers, but what we want to make sure that we convey to employees, especially mothers, of course, is that if they have that need, reach out to management and we will work towards finding them a place. Instead of, like the bigger organizations where I came from, we had to go through the buildings and designate places for nursing mothers. When you guys are so small, we can react when the request comes to us. Does that make sense? And that was all for Article 5. Article 6 is very quick. Article 6 is your current policy. Basically, the only thing we've done is added a few things for management to be able to better utilize the policy by giving some more allowable expenses and non-reimbursable expenses. We also removed some of the form numbers in the policy. That way, if the staff feels that they need to make a change to the form, we don't have to bring that back to the board. You guys just work with the policy. You don't have to work with the internal daily procedures. Article 7, holidays and leave. This one's a little complex, or can be a little complex. So we will look at page 44. Under section 2, paid holidays, sorry. The current policy, as you'll see in the black writing, that the current policy requires them to forfeit overtime if it's not used by the next pay period. And that is actually a violation of the Fair Labor Standards Act. We cannot require them to forfeit overtime because it is already hours that they worked. So we either have to pay them out or allow them to make them. And that can be at the discretion of the town manager under whatever the circumstances are at the time. There's a statement in the policy that says all full-time employees are encouraged to take at least 5 consecutive days of vacation leave each calendar year to renew their physical and mental capabilities or other personal reasons. I recommend that we remove that statement. Yes, I do think that employees need to do that, and I think that's very important, but I feel like that it ties you into a possible situation where, what if you have that employee who has an attendance problem? And they come back and they say, you know, well, you're telling me here to take 5 days off, now you're telling me not to take 5. So I feel like it sends some mixed signals. So I don't see the necessity in that statement, I guess. If we move to page 45, holidays, we talk about full-time, non-exempt employees and their overtime, if they work overtime during the holiday. But the key changes to this one is, we are going to require them to have to work, or not work, but be in pay status before the holiday and the day after the holiday. So if they're on leave without pay, before and after the holiday, or either one, before or after the holiday, they would not receive that holiday pay. But if they're taking vacation, if they're taking sick time, if they're using their comp time before and after the holiday, then they would receive that holiday pay. And that is industry standard. Page 46. Section 7. Let me back up. Section 6, vacation leave use of and reporting. Employees serving a probationary period following their initial appointment shall not be allowed to use vacation during the first 6 months of the probationary period. So what I want to make sure I point out there is, although they have a 1-year probationary period, they would still be able to use their vacation time after 6 months. Okay. I think 1 year of not allowing them to use it would probably be just a smidge harsh. So they would be able to use that after 6 months.
Yeah. On that, if we were fixing to hire a new employee and they had, say, already paid for a cruise in 2 months, could we have some verbiage in there that would allow that town manager, when they hire that employee, to go ahead and put that there for them to be able to take that time off without pay because they've already got that schedule?
As part of a hiring agreement.
Yes, correct.
We absolutely can do that. And that's a great idea.
Sometimes people already pre-plan trips, so
Right.
that would be important to do there.
That's a great idea, and absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Excuse me.
But it would be without pay.
Right. Well, let me ask you this. If they had time accrued, would you allow them to use that time accrued?
You're talking about new hires, right?
I'm talking about new
I'm just talking about new hires.
So the first 6 months, they would accrue each pay period or however often you all accrue. So if I said, 4 months from now, I've got a trip planned and I have 2 days or whatever of vacation accrued, can I use that vacation accrual balance that I have available and then take the rest without pay?
I would say that being a problem. Does anybody have a problem with that? Okay, I don't know.
Well, I was reading, it says employees serving a probationary period following their initial employment shall not be allowed to use vacation leave during the first 6 months of the probationary period. And this is now essentially the creating undue hardship. So even if they're accruing leave, you don't allow them to use it in the first 6 months. Am I reading that correct?
You are, but I think what he's saying is, if you're hiring that person and they say, I would love to take the job, but I've got a trip planned, during our probationary period, can I be hired with the agreement that I can take that time off?
Oh, yeah, I'm not going against that. I was just saying, are we talking about them still being able to pay or use vacation time, and they're still in their probation period? Does that conflict with what's already on the policy?
Well, the way the policy reads now, it leaves some leverage there, to where it says unless it would create a conflict of,
It says the undue hardship.
undue hardship, which would be. So if let's say, for example, they said, I need to go out of town for a funeral, during their probationary period, and it was something that wasn't expected, we certainly would allow them to do that. that would be a hardship situation. You know, and if someone's hired in, you know, that, and that's a question for the board or for town council. If they're hired in and they say, I have this trip planned, do you want to allow them to use any accruals that are on the books? Or do you want to require them to take it leave without pay? That is totally your choice, and either one is perfectly fine. And you can think about it. We're not adopting the law. You can think about it, talk about it. There's probably a lot more through here that you're gonna want to talk about anyway. So we can just kind of flag that one, if you'd like to do that. Does that work? The other piece of it is the 192 hours versus 240. I think, if I'm understanding correctly, I think that what's happening is, someone can correct me that knows this in the room, that if I'm wrong, but I think what's happening is anything over the, or they can roll over up to 190, or over 192 hours, up to a certain amount into the next year, vacation into the next year, is that correct?
Up to 192 hours, I believe.
And then,
Currently.
yeah, but I think, and that's very different from industry standard. Industry standard is this: at the end of the year, anything over vacation of 240 hours rolls straight into sick time. And it doesn't roll into extra vacation for that next year. And I'm not sure what the practice is.
It rolls into sick leave. Anything over 192 rolls into sick leave.
Into sick leave, okay. I'm not sure the policy reads that clear, so that helps me to know we even need to clear it up even more.
Yeah.
Because anything over, and you can do whatever hours you want over a certain amount to roll into the sick day, but it's typically anything over 240, is what rolls over into the sick day. And that's a very good benefit for employees, because that's for every 20 days of, or for every month of service, I think it is, you receive, for every 20 days, you receive a month of service. So, from your sick time. So when that sick time's rolled, you start rolling the hours into that sick time bank really starts getting up there. And it's very helpful.
When it's time to retire, it is.
Absolutely. You know, our young generation will think about that retirement right now, but they will one day. And be thankful that we did this. So, but yeah, that's a great benefit for employees. Let's see, page 47. Your current practice is giving employees credit for prior service from other agencies where they worked when they're hired. We just won't put that in policy, so it's standard practice. You're doing a lot of things right, we just need to get policies married up with it, is basically where we're at. Let's see, we did massage the reasons for being out for sickness just a little bit to give management a more of a list to go by. Not to say that it's all inclusive, but it does help them to not have to think so hard about, is this a valid reason for being out, is it not? So it just gives them a standard list to be able to use. Let's see, sick leave, retirement credit for sick leave. I talked about that just a minute ago. That is industry standard. We all know that, but we want to make sure that we've got that in our policy. Then the same thing for transfer of sick leave. Current practice is that we can accept that time, we can accept that time from another agency, and you've got some criteria there that has to be met for the employee to be able to bring that time with them from another agency. On your sick leave reinstatement, your policy currently says 3 years. If they come back in 3 years in good standing, that they get their credit for their previous sick accrual balances. I recommend, because of industry standard, I recommend that we change that to 1 year. We move to page 50, leave without pay. There was a little bit of confusion in the policy, and I think if we just change the verbiage some, it will clear it up. I think that There's some that reads that's an option for the employee to not use their vacation or not use their sick. And then there's another section that reads that the town manager can, make that decision. So I think what we would need to do to clean it up is to say that before you can take leave without pay, you must have exhausted all of your paid time, which makes perfect sense. Except for sick, maybe they're taking leave without pay for some other reason that's can't be used for sick. So you would only do sick if it's applicable. But you would first start out with requiring them to use their overtime, and then sick if applicable, and then vacation. You want to get that overtime banked, gone, because that's going to be paid out to them at some point. So let them use that before they start using their vacation or their sick time. So if we change the verbiage in the policy to that, I think we'll be completely safe. Your current policy says that they can be on non-FMLA leave for up to 1 full year. I think that Mr. Robinson is requesting it to be 6 months, and then anything after 6 months, if they need to take leave without pay, then the board needs, or excuse me, town council needs to approve that. And there's somewhere else in here it read a different time period, so that will bring consistency to your leave without pay policy. Down on 24, shared leave, I think your current verbiage is shared sick leave. I'd recommend that it just say shared leave, that way we don't have that sick time mingled up in there and twist our brains with HR, because us HR people will get to analyzing every single word of something. So, do we know it? See, you must be, I believe you're probably gonna be the town clerk HR person, am I correct?
I'm already there.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. Okay. So,
Okay. That's right.
About the FMLA part?
yes, sir.
So I guess my question is for town, so if, is it standard or customary that if someone calls out sick or they're going to work sick, we automatically send them FMLA paperwork?
No, I think you have to fix that, right?
Yeah, it's a process that goes along with that. So if you're out sick, you're just out sick. But if it's something that's a long period of time, you have to put in paperwork and also with the doctor's information. So,
It's meet a certain criteria.
right.
Well, my question in that is in regards and just speaking from my job standpoint, if I call out of work, the paperwork is recommended that we send it regardless, and it's up to me as the employee to get that taken care of. And then you submit the paperwork, and then it's approved or disapproved if it doesn't meet that criteria. So that the employee doesn't come back later and say, you didn't tell me I could put in for the FMLA and my job be protected. So it might be better that we protect ourselves in that type of circumstance to say, well, you let me stay out of work for 4 or 5 weeks, and now you want to get rid of me because I told you I ain't feeling good and I ain't ready to come back to work yet. I gave you paperwork on day one. As soon as you called out, mail it to him, email it, however you get it to me, and this left up to the employee, because it's left up to us to take it to the doctor with us, get it filled out, submit it back to HR or whoever, your OSHA nurse or whoever your nursing people are. And then they say, yeah, this don't qualify. And then they have to give updates of when they're going to be back to work. So that we're not, held liable later on when now you're trying to get somebody to come back to work and you think that they, jiving. So I was just wondering what our policy was and if that could be potentially looked at.
Can I speak to that for a second?
Absolutely.
Okay. What that is that employee will speak to their supervisor. If you know you're going to be out for a long period of time, because we do have some things that are stipulated for a certain amount of time. If you know you're going to be out for a short time, like 3 or 5 days, that's more short term than 6 sick days. However, if you know it's going to be, if you're out for surgery or something, or if there's an accident and you know you're going to be out for a long period of time, supervisor would say, hey, this is something that's maybe a long period of time, so just look into your HR, go talk about FMLA or something like that, because it lets them know, okay, the supervisor now needs to know that they have to make adjustments to their team, because again, we're small, but they have to spread around it. They work to the team. But it also allows, them to know, say, hey, if you're gonna be out a certain amount of time, we are able to give them the time frame of what it is and how it will start, because you wanna get this paperwork rolling, so that their time will be started on the clock. So that, if they go out a certain amount of time, that they may not have that exact position, but it's a different position that's on the same level. So we have that opportunity to move around, but we just have to make sure we have a position. But it is, it's a two-way street, it's a working partnership, the employee, between the employee and supervisor, because they have to let them know, hey, I'm gonna be out a couple of months because my doctor said X, Y, Z, take it to the next level. So that's why it's the.
And I'm also thinking in terms of, let's say I'm out for whatever reason, I had surgery, but it's an FMLA COVID situation, and I come back to work, but it's a recurring issue where maybe my back gives me problems. And so I'm gonna call out of work for tomorrow, Monday, Tuesday, whatever the day is, and it's an FMLA covered injury. But it's not for an extended period of time, it's only for that day or.
No, you can have it can be a sliding scale. You may have a certain amount of days, you can take them all within that period of time, or you can split them up. Right, intermittently. So it's workable, that's where that conversation comes in. So you have to say, okay, well, I need it where I can take a certain amount of days. As long as we know which days you wanna take it, okay, because that has happened before. Or if you need it straight in a row, then we lock you in for that particular amount of time. But there comes that conversation.
And in your personnel policy, under FMLA, to give you a little bit more at ease with this, it gives her specific guidance on what we can and can't do. The FMLA regulations are very, very strict. It's so strict that the department supervisor or direct supervisor cannot contact the doctor under any circumstances through FMLA. You cannot require a doctor's note to be provided. The only way you can do that is the medical certification that we require them to provide through FMLA. That medical certification, when it expires, then HR can go back to them and say, we need an updated document. The other piece of it is, I was thinking and I lost it as soon as I said it. The responsibilities. It does lay out the responsibilities in the policy, which also puts some of the responsibility on management, because we have to be able to recognize the need for an FMLA. Not only is the employee obligated to let us know they need it, we're obligated to recognize that need. And it gives you all of the different ways to recognize the need of a serious health condition. And I will tell you, 1998, I guess it was, 97, Clinton implemented the FMLA. You know what I mean? Well, that was a nightmare, and still is. But anyway, serious health condition defined in the regulations was a sentence about that long. And after about 2 years, the definition of serious health condition is now this long. So it's all written out into the policy to help to give management that guidance. Anything else from the council? Let's see. Where were we? Okay, 47, 40 page. I put my pages around. 3 years, okay, we're on page 50. Yeah, we're still on page 50. Okay. On the shared leave, we did want to make sure that we're using shared leave for those catastrophic illnesses, and we're not using it for someone who has a common cold. And to help with management to make fair and consistent decisions with employees, and that they're allowing them that time off fairly. If we use the same definition for serious health condition that FMLA uses, then that will help the manager and his staff to be able to be more consistent in who they're allowing to take shared leave. I have a passion about the shared leave thing, and I can get really cranked up and sideways on it, because I feel like we need to protect our people. And I feel like if the employee's requesting shared leave, we need to make sure that it is somebody that's getting it that's not abusing the time, their time that they've accrued. Because our people that have that time accrued are kind enough to give it to someone who's in need. So I'm very funny about making sure that that time is not being abused. Their own accrued time is not being abused. So I feel like that we need to make sure that we've got the serious health condition as the core, the definition through FMLA as the core for why we're offering the shared leave. Does that make sense? We're also asking that there be a 1-year employment requirement with the shared leave program. And of course, if we change to the 12-month probationary period, we'll have to change that to be 12 months versus 6 months. And again, we've added a statement in 6, and actually it needs to be worded just a little different. I worded that, and it needs to be worded different again. But that would be where we say that they have to exhaust all of their paid time before they're placed on that leave without pay, or shared leave. The only thing changing in the military policy, page 52, and it's not really changing, it's actually some clarification I want to make sure that we understand. In here, it reads the opposite of what we just said. We just said that you have to exhaust all of your time, right, for leave without pay. When the military section, it says the employee has that option, and that under USERA, it is required that we allow them to have that option. So we have to give them that, which is the opposite of our leave without pay policy. And the same thing, let me back up. This too, let's do the next page. Same thing on, yeah, this next page, page 54. The child involvement leave, the same thing. That is time without pay, but the employee can be paid for that time. If they want to be paid for that time, they can use their vacation in conjunction with that 8 hours of child involvement leave. Make sense? Okay. This is one of the tougher ones. The rest of them should slide by pretty quickly. FMLA, page 55. If I put in here a rolling calendar year, I don't know how you track your FMLA. It was my understanding it was rolling calendar year, but I could be wrong. So you can track it either a calendar year or a rolling calendar year. And I put in here rolling calendar year. Is that what you're doing?
Yes, that's how it starts.
Okay, so that's current practice. And then the eligibility, we want to make sure that we define it as FMLA regulations define their 12 months of employment. This one's changed up through the years too. That employment time period, or 52 weeks, can be during a 7-year period, and that's FMLA regulations. They do not have to be consecutive months. So if you're looking at that 12-month period, you're gonna have to go back and see how long they've actually been employed here. Okay. Page 58. If you look down under section 35, and I'm hitting the key issues, okay? Section 35, your policy currently reads that they have to share that 12 weeks for the birth of a child and to care for a parent. Regulations allow you to do that for birth of a child, but not to care for a parent. They each would be able to have their 12 weeks to care for their parent, which makes sense to me. And that is FMLA regulations. So we changed that. We also added a section to limit activities while on FMLA. I don't think you guys would have this problem because you are so small, and I know as minimal employees as you have, I know that they're dedicated. We're probably looking at more of one of the agencies that have a larger personnel, larger amount of personnel, but you may have someone who's out on FMLA that has a knee surgery, and then you find them out playing ball on a ball team. So we want to make sure that we've got that cover for the town as well. We also added a blurb into page 59, section 40, that if they do not return from FMLA leave, that they're, have resigned, voluntarily resigned. Section 8 is very standard industry. There's really not a whole lot to focus on in this area. If there's any questions on it, I'll be happy to talk about it, but you can see the new sections that we've added, and again, it's industry standard. We move to Article 9, separation and disciplinary action. Mr. Robinson and I battled this one pretty hard. The current policy, we really want to pretty much revamp it completely. With using small pieces of what you guys currently have. And basically, we're again repeating the involuntary, voluntary separation. We talked about the probationary period dismissal, but then we talk about job performance with employees. And it really says pretty much the same thing as your policy, but it's just reorganized and gives management a clear set of guidelines. So we broke it down into unsatisfactory job performance, unacceptable personal conduct, and grossly inefficient job performance. And depending on what category they fall into, whatever the performance issue is or the conduct issue is, will depend on the severity of the disciplinary action. So if it's your standard work performance issues, you would go through what we call progressive discipline, counseling, oral, written, final, so on and so forth. If it is a conduct issue or something grossly inefficient like theft, that leaves the manager that opportunity to immediately terminate it. It needs to be handled in that manner. We also added a section in here on failure to obtain credentials, which I think has been your standard practice most likely, but it needs to be placed in the policy. Page 68, we have, you currently have a policy that requires them to report criminal convictions, but not criminal charges. So we feel like that we need to implement them to report criminal charges, just so we make sure that it's not a conflict of interest with the town. If it is a charge that, as we all know, the court systems may take years. So if it is a charge and we're waiting for them to go to court to determine whether they're going to be convicted or not, there is a section in here that gives the manager the ability to place that person on leave without pay for non-disciplinary purposes, but allow them to use their vacation or comp time while they're out waiting for the court date. We also added section 15 on page 69, which is putting some employee notification requirements to the employee. If it's a dismissal, a demotion, or a suspension, it's given a process, and this is again standard industry, and there are some statutes that kind of to lead us into needing to implement it in this manner, but it gives a process that you're getting basically a pre-disciplinary meeting to that employee. And basically what you're saying is, hey, Mr. Robinson, we're considering doing this to you, final written warning, whatever, or suspension, whatever it is, we're considering doing this to you, but here's your opportunity to talk to us and tell us why we should not consider the suspension or the termination. And gives them that chance to be able to basically defend themselves. We also implemented a section for eligibility for rehire. That if they may be reinstated or rehired, or not eligible for reinstatement or rehire, if they are dismissed for conduct grossly inefficient, resigned in lieu of dismissal, or did not meet the county's resignation requirements. And then in the resignation requirements, I think the manager is asking for all department heads to give 30-day notice, and all the rest of the employees to give a 1 week notice, 2 weeks notice, 2 week notice, and that's in the policy as well. Right now, it doesn't read anything about department heads, and it doesn't read anything about, or it doesn't read that it reads that there's certain positions that give a 2 week and certain positions that give a 1 week. So we want to try and get that a little bit more consistent across the board. On the grievance section, we've pretty much rewritten that entire thing to give management a little bit more of a clear process on how to address the grievances. The employee has a time frame limit. There's time frame limits in your current policy, but we've stretched that all the way through from start to finish, so we get a closure, and the employee knows how long they have to be able to file that grievance against whatever it is that they want to file against. We get some closure assigned to it, I guess you could say. The other big change on the grievance process is that currently your policy says that employees can file the grievance through a process. Once it gets to the town manager, if they're not satisfied with the town manager's decision, they can bring it to town council in a public hearing. We believe that pulling you guys out of that is safer for you. It's safer for us to not be violating statutes. Because the statutes are the manager's the one who has the authority, the only one that has authority to hire and fire, with the exception of his position and other elected official positions. So what you would do is you would form a 3-person personnel advisory board with someone from the general public, citizens, like you do I'm sure you have other boards throughout the town. You process it in the very same way. It could be a 3-person board because you guys are so small, and the employee or the manager can choose to file that grievance to that board, and the board does not make the decision, but it is an unbiased group of people who can hear it openly and hear both sides and provide a recommendation to the manager. Or if the manager is in a struggle with it, he can say, you know what, I'm not comfortable with this. Let's let the board hear this and see what they say. And take it to that personnel advisory board. And then we've set some criteria in there on what the personnel advisory board qualifications would need to be. I won't read all of those, but if you decide to transition from taking that away from council and putting it to the personnel advisory board, you can review that in detail. Any questions on that? And the last one, or the second to last one, Article 11, personnel records, is industry standard. The only thing that I'm recommending there is of any significance is adding your contract employees, town manager, basically, his contract is public record. So we put that in there. And then also your current policy reads that it will give the most recent information on promotions, or demotions or suspensions. And the statutes read that we have to provide all of them in support through their different work history. So that's really the only big significant change on this section. And you can see there are a few sections there that I'm recommending that we remove the statement because it just doesn't seem to be very useful. And then Article 12, implementation of the policy. This again is industry standard, nothing that we really need to focus on. So your biggest ones are Article 3, recruitment and selection, the disciplinary action one, and your grievance one. Those are the 3 biggest ones that I would really like to ask you as we leave tonight, that you focus on those and make sure that they are massaged exactly like you want them. And again, this is working documents. We can change anything. We can do whatever you want to do. We can research if you're not sure. You know, it's totally in your hands at this point, and I am open to making whatever changes the council and town management deems necessary.
Do I have any questions?
And I know that was a lot, and I apologize. There's no way to get around this painful stuff. There's just no way.
I think the job is a long process.
It's like I tell people when I do training, I say, you know, you can make HR stuff, but it's so fun. So, it is not fun, but I do hope that we convey the information to you clearly. If not, please let me know. If you don't do HR every day, it's confusing. Just like if you're not a nurse and you try to go in and give somebody a shot for testosterone like my son, you don't know what you're doing, so, I mean, it's difficult. So be open with us and let us know what you're thinking and let us know what you have changed. We're here to massage it to how the council wants it to be massaged.
Sounds like you put a lot of work into it. Thank you yourself and Jason and Amanda. Sounds like y'all all put an extensive amount of work on this, and I thank you for all the job done.
Very well.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank
Mr. Robertson has been more than a pleasure to work with, I will tell you.
That's why we got him.
That's right. You should keep him. You should keep him.
Yes, ma'am. Right man for the job. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Our next thing will be our funding request for West Columbus Cheer. Is there someone here for that? Okay, I'm gonna read it. The West Columbus, high school cheer team is requesting money to compete in the ACC National Cheerleading Championship in Orlando. They come by with a flyer. What is the pleasure of the council on this? Do you want to table it till we can talk to them, or what would you like to do?
I just want to push.
Okay.
Don't we have a process already in place for, we did, prior
I
to,
don't know.
prior to completing, we have a process that was implemented for people looking for donations and sponsorships, things that got not done. Yeah, and so, I don't know if you can call it.
You want to make a motion for them to look into it? You come back to us with the
Did
policy?
they just dropped the fire off?
Yeah, they just dropped the flyer.
What's the pleasure of council on this? Got a motion on the floor on this? Second time calling for a motion on the floor. Third and final time calling for a motion on the floor. Hearing no motion, this item is dead on its merit, and we're gonna move forward. Okay? Hearing no motion from the council. Next will be vacation, comp time, and buyback policy. What do we have on this? Is this you, Jason?
It can be,
Okay.
if there are, places that this kind of council discuss this policy. Currently, employees, can have 160 hours each of vacation and comp time to be bought back each year. It's done twice a year, once in July, once in December. An employee can have 160 hours of comp bought back, 160 hours of vacation bought back. So that's the current policy. I'm going to piggyback on what Ms. Gregory said. The non-exempt employees, we have to pay out their comp time. No matter how much it is, we have to pay it out, because that is hours worked already. Exempt employees, that's totally different. We don't have to pay. As a matter of fact, I asked her to include in the policy where we do not have to pay out at the end of service, at separation, we do not have to pay out comp time for exempt employees. We offer exempt employees comp time to use, but like I said, the non-exempt employees have to be paid their comp time. By using buyback, it keeps that down so that you don't have as big of a hit at one time. Because if they had 300 hours and they left, we have to pay them that 300 hours at whatever their current salary is. And, but again, that does not apply to exempt employees. If you don't want to pay exempt employees comp time, you don't have to. That's not.
How much, do you know the dollars that we paid out last year and, yeah,
I can get that information for you, last year and actually this year.
and so the July won't be paid out until the next fiscal.
Till July. Right. This fiscal year is already done. They've already got July and December. It's already done. I mean, Yeah, if y'all would like to table it until the next meeting, because you bring up the numbers.
Well, well, that's the question. Isn't it something we can handle in the budget?
Yeah.
When we start doing the budget, can't we just push it off to the
Yeah,
budget?
and I was gonna say.
Because come right back, I mean, we're gonna need to talk about this in the budget.
Right, and,
This sounds like something to tackle for the budget.
and this will also affect, personnel policy, because it's in personnel policy. If there's a change, it'll be changed in the personnel policy.
So would that work for you to put it to the budget?
That's fine with me. Yeah, especially considering it's already been done this year.
Well, do I have a motion for the council, let's address this in the budget,
I'll make a motion that we discuss this in the budget.
okay? Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor, let it know by saying aye. Any opposed? Okay, we'll put that as a budget discussion. Elected officials travel budget. What you got for us on that? Jason?
Basically what I had put in the memorandum that's been, asked to be discussed. Currently this year, it's $22,000 that was budgeted. As of December 15th, there's $4,557.55 being used out of that budget. So that's all I have, really.
Okay, or do we have anything from the council?
Well, I mean, and I expressed this during the budget season, I think $22,000 is a lot of money. And I'm all for education and sending people for education, but we want to make sure that something's coming back to the town for elected officials to be at these retreats and these different places. And, so,
Anyone else have anything on this? Was there a dollar amount? Has anybody got a dollar amount you would like for it to be? You want to put in the motion or?
Like this one.
Yes, sir.
Once again, just like the previous, item that we just moved to budget, this is a budget item.
Yeah.
This is a budget workshop item. And I recall the amount was reduced, in the budget season from 25 down to 22, if I remember correctly. But as far as, discussing budget items at this point in time, I mean, this is January, we get ready to start budget season in March, usually we start having our meetings, so, I think that would be the appropriate time to have a meeting out of this issue.
Once again, we can certainly entertain a motion to do this thing. If y'all would
So
like to do
that's a
so.
motion that we, don't do anything and have it as a budget. See,
Okay, I got a motion on the floor, is there a second? Okay, is there a motion, is there a second, do I have a second? Do I have a second to discuss it during budget time? Okay, that motion is dead on the floor, do we have another motion on it?
I would like to make a motion that we discuss it next council meeting when all council members are here.
Okay, got a motion on the floor for the next council meeting, is there a second?
Second.
Got a motion on the floor and second, is there any other discussion?
yes,
Okay,
and what's the difference between this budget item and the budget item that we just discussed?
This budget item still can have $18,000 spent out of it versus the other budget item has already spent all it's going to spend for this year.
Right, so, I mean, have you taken a look at what's been spent in the last 3 years, according to the budget item?
if you want to, if y'all want to address the chair, make a statement, y'all can't debate back and forth on this, you have to make a statement, address the chair, and then the other person will have the right to talk.
I apologize.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor,
unless we're in discussion.
we still in discussion?
Well, we're still, we've got two motions on there. If y'all got something during discussion, just go ahead and make your statements to the chair and the other person can respond. So we're not just going back and forth with each other
Okay,
from Robert's Rules Board.
all right. So according to the last, according to the last two budget cycles that we've had, we haven't even used 50% of the amount of money that has been budgeted for these particular line items. This particular line item, that we're talking about. I find it, Mr. Mayor, to nitpick one particular line item, or maybe it's two, and one is a vacation buyback. That's something that management is looking at, having administration is having to look at. But also with this one particular line item, this is something that is available for all of us to use. All six of us, mayors, council members. I know our administration staff, and police chiefs, public works department heads, they all go get training. As you heard from the lady who just came with HR, there's a lot of moving parts to what it is that we do. We make policy that these employees look up to us to say, hey, we need to put something in place that we can feel comfortable working in front of. I don't know about any other council member, but I wasn't born in 1974 as a council member. With any of our guys' jobs, with any of us in our respective positions, you always have training. You always have workshops and conferences and things that you go to to continuously keep you abreast of what's going on. Especially in this political climate that we're in, rules change. January 1st, new rules were implemented, not only in the state, but on the federal level. I don't know about you all, but do you know them all? Probably not. But when you go to these places, when you go to training, when you go to conferences, they have people who, just like this HR lady who spoke, they have people who give you those updates, that let you know what's going on, how it can affect you in your municipality. As far as grants and monies and things that have been brought back to the town, if you look back over time, millions of dollars of grants have been brought back, whether it's in water and sewer, whether it's being resources available with people coming and offering their services free to the town. But it's up to the rest of council to listen and to take that information in and make responsible decisions about it. I've had multiple people, I think of one from a company called Circap, who came in and gave a presentation that would benefit our citizens when it comes to water and sewer leaks, that would help them when they have to pay or can't pay. It offered them an opportunity to meet that gap. So there are multiple things that have been brought back, and if you're talking about one particular line item, Mr. Mayor, that is set at $22,000, and less than 25% of the money has been used halfway through the fiscal year, I don't see why this isn't something that can be addressed in a joint budget season, budget workshop season, so that we can address it in the 26-27 budget year. We're currently already halfway through the current fiscal year. So.
Okay. I've heard from both of you gentlemen once. I'm going to give Councilor Nealy, if she has a chance to say anything. Do you have anything you would like to add to this before we, by rule of order, everybody gets a chance before we go to a second speaking if they have another. Okay? Council Clewis, you have something you'd like to say?
Yeah, I'm all, now, this is totally different. This is money for elected officials, not town employees. Town employees, 2,000% for them going anywhere that will benefit the town and increase their workplace knowledge, and which would be a great benefit. I just look at $22,000 is a lot, and I'm one of those people, one of the council people. And I just look at $22,000 is a lot to spend to go to conferences. There's a lot of things that we could do. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be allowed to go to some. I just think that we should scale that money back and not spend so much of the taxpayer dollars, because a lot of this stuff, you know, we could be in a deficit, which we're not thinking this, but a lot of this stuff could be used in other places, in and around the town. And that's my feelings on that. And yes, I mean, we haven't spent $4,557, but there's still, room for a lot to be spent. And again, if we need to go to a class, I'm not opposed to that. I just don't think that we should be going to each and every class, just spending $25,000 a year in classes that it really hasn't brought a whole lot.
Okay, yes,
Once again, for those who may not understand, or I just want to state it for clarity purposes, no one has spent $22,000 in travel and training. That is the allotted amount of money that is appropriated. That amount of money has not, in the entire time that I've been on the council, has not been spent. You can allot, if that's the case, we create a budget we look at a budget, we say, this is what we're going to allot. So when you spread $22,000 over 6 people, it's not a lot of money. It's not a lot of money in the grand scheme of if you got a $2+ million budget. Okay? Secondly, one person isn't spending $22,000 in travel and training. And that includes, when we say travel and training, that includes the registration for any of the classes. That includes travel and, you know, I'll just speak from my personal standpoint. When it comes to traveling, and you can get reimbursed for your gas, I don't submit reimbursement papers for me traveling to and from. It strictly covers what I'm going for. The travel now, when I fly, if I have to fly somewhere, yes. But outside of that, me getting in my car, driving to Raleigh, submitting paperwork for reimbursement for that, no, I don't ask for that. But I do feel as though I have a responsibility as being a council person, to give educated, ask educated questions, give educated answers, be as up to speed and up to date with all policies as much as possible, so that everybody, whether you voted for me, whether you didn't vote for me, whether you want me to be here, whether you don't want me to be here, we have a job to do. All 6 of us. I count the mayor in there because he represents our town. So, yeah, it would behoove any and all of us to go and learn something else outside of, you know, being reactionary. Let's be proactive instead of being reactive. But no one has spent $22,000. That is what is budgeted. And what is not used stays in the coffers. It stays in the general fund. If you only use $5,000, then guess what? $17,000 wasn't used. And that just means you didn't use what it was that you were appropriated for. So I just wanted to say that, Mr. Mayor, for clarity purposes, $22,000 has not and hasn't been used in the past and has not or will not probably be used that I can see in this current fiscal year. Thank you.
Okay, we've got a motion on the floor, to table it to the next meeting. We've had our discussion process with giving every council member, 2 chances to speak. Normally, customary, we move to our vote at this time. What is the pleasure of the council? All in favor, for tabling until the next meeting, all in favor, let me know by saying aye. Any opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Okay, we've got 2 ayes and 1 nay. Not voting is automatic yes. So, okay, so we will be tabling that to the next meeting. Manager, will you be sure that that's on our next agenda?
Yes.
Okay, next will be check signatures. With the election of a new mayor pro tem, the signatures normally change to where the mayor pro tem will go on. So in this situation, what we're looking for is, Ms. Colleen Falk was the last mayor pro tem. So what we're looking for is, if at the pleasure of the council, a motion to replace Ms. Falk with whoever you would like to say, and at this time would be Mayor Pro Tem, Mr. Tony Jordan. What is the pleasure of the council on this?
I make a motion that we put the check signing to the new pro tem, Mr. Tony Jordan.
Okay, Mr. Tony Jordan will be added to accompany the other people that are on there, and you're saying to replace Ms. Falk, correct?
Correct.
Okay, to replace Ms. Falk, Mr. Tony will be put on there, Tony Jordan. Got a motion on the floor, is there a second?
Second.
Motion on the floor and second. Do I have any discussion on this matter? Okay, hearing none, all in favor, let it know by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So likewise, your signing officers will be the town manager, Ms. Ramona Crosby, generally me and Ms. Ramona sign the checks, and in my absence, the Mayor Pro Tem comes in and helps out, and in her absence, normally the town manager will help out. So, just so everybody be up to date on how the policy works. All right. Items from the staff, Ms. Crosby, do you have anything for us additional?
As far as I know, we have finished with the audit and it's sent up, waiting for a confirmation, a final confirmation from Wade, so I know the holiday time is getting everything done, so the last date was, December 31st. So I'll reach out to him later on this week. Excuse me, everything else pretty much is on schedule, so we're moving right along.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, from staff will be Chief Ken Elliott. Next from staff will be Mr. Stephen Price, Public Works.
Yes, we haven't ironed out a date yet for the shutdowns. We're still working with contractors on getting that date ironed out. It's a little difficult with the old lines, you know, what is disconnected fuel and everything, but we're working that day out.
So that's something we'll announce and also probably put on our lighted signs so that the public will see them when they're going by the signs and know where they are.
We'll try to do a week notice, hopefully.
Okay. And you work with the chief on the signs and get those out.
Yeah, we're having to sign.
Okay. That'll be good. That way everybody will know. Our manager, Ms. Robinson.
I have, just a couple of things. One is for the first time in 5 years at least, Chadbourn is hosting the intergovernmental meeting, with all the other municipalities and the county and the college and all that stuff at the depot on, January 26th at 6 p.m. Mr. Patrick Woody, with the CEO of the North Carolina Rural Center, will be the guest speaker. And so, mark your calendars for that. And let's see, you did the shutdowns. I think that's all. I believe that's all. Anything you can do.
Okay, and just to remind everybody that is on the 26th will be the intergovernmental meeting.
That's 6 o'clock.
Okay. At 6 o'clock. Anything else for us?
Can't think of anything. I'm sure there's probably something I'm forgetting. But I'll update y'all on Friday.
That's not like you can't let us know, right? All right. So at this time, we're going to go into closed session. Closed session, North Carolina General Statute 143-318-11A4 to discuss matters relating to the location or expansion of industries or other businesses in the area served by the public, including the agreement of a tentative lift of the economic development incentives that may be offered by the public in negotiations, public body negotiations, or discuss matters related to military installation closure or realignment, and North Carolina General Statute 143-318-11A3 to consult with an attorney employed to retain by the public body in order to observe attorney-client privilege between the attorney and public body. What is the pleasure of council on this? Motion we go in. Is there a second? Motion second. All in favor, let me know by saying aye. Any opposed? We'll be going into closed session and we'll be back.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I'll do it tomorrow. You know,
How are you?
Still at it.
For now, for the after any closed session, I will go back. Make, I don't know how long we're going. Closed session. Yeah.
I think this one there should be able to. You're very well.
Sit up. The trash bag.
Hey, mine's out there.